Okay, welcome to another edition of Real Estate Investor Talk. And I'm here with Murray Clarke, and he's the founder and CEO of Neighbourgood. Murray, it's great seeing you.
Good to see you too.
And so Murray, just give us a little bit of background about yourself first before we start unpacking the whole sort of Neighbourgood model.
Okay. So I grew up in Durban, born and bred, went to school at DHS, one of the best public schools in the country. Obviously, if you're from Durban, you say which school you're from. I grew up on building sites. My late father was a building contractor, and just had his inspiration to the extent that, he was just a really practical, gentle giant of a man who, for me, was that influence. He wasn't necessarily a wealthy man at all, but I got to learn a lot from him, which is a lot more important than any money can buy. My first real business, or my first real venture into the property space, was by mistake, because we had rented an old cricket pavilion at DHS Old Boys Club, which was in a dilapidated state for the purposes of running this under 18 nightclub. And I was about 17 or 18, and we got shut down in the third week by the Durban North Moms, who didn't want us to run this under 18 nightclub and scare their daughters away. And so we had the space that was then available that I had to pay 3,000 Rand a month for. And, as an 18-year-old, you need to make a plan. So we put an advert into the paper, and maybe some beginner's luck, we got a tenant who was interested, called Curves Gym at the time. And Curves Gym ended up renting it from us for 8,000 to 9,000 Rand a month, and that 5,000 Rand delta gave me the money to buy whatever I needed to when I was at that age, and taught me the sort of the old arbitrage that we all look for in any business, not just real estate. That was the first of many property deals over time.
So I've got to ask, how does a Durban boy land up in Cape Town? What was your move on?
Yeah, so Cape Town for us, I guess, was two things. One, we wanted to start a business at the time called Good, which ultimately became Neighbourgood, and we had an opportunity to do that. But two, I think it was an opportunity for us to move cities. Instead of taking a gap year when you're 21, we were like 28, 29, and thought that it might be a good way to, number one, open the business, but two, appreciate all the beauty that Cape Town has to offer. And I'm so glad that we did, because it really has become home for us now.
That's fantastic. So when you arrived here, what was kind of you mentioned Good, and now we're in Neighbourgood. So,
yes.
So give us a background to the formation of Neighbourgood, and the model and
Got you.
How it came about.
Got you. So there's a gap between leaving school at 18 and when we formed Good in 2018, a long gap. And so after my failed attempts at running under 18 nightclubs and all those things, we got into entry-level residential development in areas across KZN, like Malvern and Queensborough and Manor Gardens, and buying land out of the newspapers at that stage, the classified, just speaking about print media. We built a product called Big Box, which was an entrepreneurial development fund that would find, fund, educate, and mentor young entrepreneurs in townships. In Komasha, we built the first one. It was like 30 to 40 retrofitted containers next to a ShopRite. And the idea is that we would help move away from just big box retail and support small local entrepreneurs. And at that stage, that was the way the world was going. Online was obviously massive. And as a disruption in 2012, 2013, 2014, that was just bigger than ever before. Now it's obviously just become the norm, but at the time there were big box retailers that were being disrupted, and so we wanted to go to where the puck was going, I guess, and big box was the combination of understanding what the future of retail looked like, but also bringing a community philosophy to the way we think. How do we pair sustainability, social impact, and sustainable, profitable business into a single concept that made sense within South Africa, that is, and that was big box. That concept, big box became something called Good, which was, I guess, a more aspirational version of what big box was. And Good, again, thinking about the future, was the combination of a co-work space, a food hall, a health and wellness space, multi-purpose studio, a really cool bar, coffee shop, and a community of cool people in a 2,000 square meter space in Woodstock. That was why we moved up to Cape Town.
Right.
And it was very successful for about a year, and then unfortunately the business, we learned a lot about economies of scale and how to make sure we uncomplicate business and get one or two things right, not five things right. So if you look at the layers of what Good was, it certainly made sense to the future, but it had too many layers. So it had workspace, it had a food hall, it had wellness, it had various components, and each layer had a general manager. And whilst I think it was it was very well executed and designed, the business itself was too complicated for our first attempt in trying to change what the future of retail really looked like. In that time, we spent a lot of time in the UK looking at Debenham stores that were shutting down. What does the future look like in the built environment? How do we create spaces like Good Woodstock and help landlords bring life into their properties and move away from just big box retail, which at the time was very sterile. So second time now after big box and Good Woodstock was challenging. Luckily before that, obviously we had built 30, 40 shopping centers that were successful. So I had breathing space to be able to even trial things and fail once or twice, and that's life if you're trying to do anything different. Our model relative to a traditional hospitality model is quite different. We have a mix of long-term and short-term, and our operating costs are far less than a traditional hotel. So on a like-for-like basis, the NOI, or the net operating income, is much better than historically than the hotel performed. So when you enter into a management agreement, it is asset light, so you can scale without having to put significant capital into it. And so initially when we started out, Cape Quarter Living was our first site, and it was myself, Kim, and Singe. It was really about taking a problem. Initially it was 14 units at the top of Cape Quarter. That was a short-term operator at the beginning of COVID that obviously, as a result of the economic times and the times that we're in, had failed, and we just turned it into a co-living space. It was successful. We let up in sort of under 60 days. And because we did that, we got the opportunity to take over in the same space the old Deloitte's office, which was 2,000 square meters. And that became our first co-work space, which was Neighbourgood Cape Quarter. Again, it's on a management agreement. And we were successful in leasing that up over sort of a 3 to 4 month period. So those were our first two sites. Organically, then growth came as a J-curve more over the last 2 years and less in the beginning as life, we sort of progress and the brand gets bigger and bigger. I personally invested a significant portion of my own balance sheet into the company, into properties that we own. Most were bought during 2020 and 2022 when there were actually deals. And recently we've been able to acquire a few other buildings in partnership with family offices. And so it's a combination of my own capital, family office capital, and just OpCo asset light deals that make sense. I like the blend of OpCo, PropCo, essentially, because on the one hand you get brand growth and operational cash flow, on the other hand you get net asset value creation if you buy correctly, which is really important. So fortunately, I mean, I think the sort of 15 years of hard property experience helped, shape the right habits in terms of finding the right deals. If you look at platforms like Airbnb and Booking.com and Property24, and they serve a purpose, but they're very functional. So they get you from A to B. You want to rent a home, you find it, you go through a process. You want to rent a holiday home, Airbnb, you have. This is you're getting an entire experience. So you have a community of 2,000-3,000 people across the city that live and breathe on both in person and online. And so you get to experience Cape Town as a lifestyle experience with like-minded human beings. We have daily events and activations, from walks up Table Mountain to special interest groups to pizza nights to wine nights to First Thursday to just little small gatherings that are intimate for 5-10 people to 1,000 people events sort of thing, and coffee raves. And so you're not having to go searching for experience. It's almost there for you if you want it.
Yeah.
And I think that's been really important for us as a benefit. How do we counter sort of this digital world that we live in and create real world experiences that bring people together to help people form friendships, and do that in a way that is citywide. So it's not just about people who live in our buildings, it's about everyone in the city. How do you create this platform that people can connect with foreigners, with locals, with old people, young people, everyone in between, in a way that is sustainable, kind. There's a lot of just goodwill behind it, and for us that's really important. Neighbourgood really has 3 words in it. The neighbourhood, how we impact the neighbourhood around us when we go into an investment, and hopefully that is always positive. What does that word good mean in Neighbourgood? So how do you live your life in a way that brings good to the world? And how do you treat your neighbour? I think those 3 words sort of encapsulate what Neighbourgood's all about. Yeah. And by design, that's why the brand is called Neighbourgood. And we bring that into how we live and breathe our sites each and every day, and how our team operates, and how we make decisions, and our values, and the framework in which we operate. So that's super important for us. And so when you consider staying with us, that's what you're really buying into as well. I think because we position between hard multifamily, which would stabilize at 93% generally, and hospitality, which is 65% game depending on the nature of the hotel, I would say that we're in and around the 80 to 85% mark in terms of stabilized occupancy. But your like-for-like revenue is probably 2x multifamily. So multifamily at $2,000 a month or 20 grand a month, we would be at 40,000 rand a month or $4,000 a month in terms of top line. And then your operating costs are marginally higher than multifamily, in order of about, I would say 10%. So if multifamily is at 25 to 30, we'd be at 40 for 100 to 150 rooms. As scale increases, so ops costs come down relative. So we still have front of house. We don't have 5 front of houses. We'll have 1 front of house, depending on the size of the building. Of course, some of our buildings don't have staff. It's just self-check-in and things like that, but they're always around anchor sites. So there's always a cluster general manager who's taking care of a specific cluster. And moving forward, we'll only really be doing deals of north of 50 to 100 units for a whole bunch of reasons, and I'll get into strategy just now. But I would say there's 20 to 30% bips better NOI leveraging our operating model to a traditional multifamily. So if you're at 8% in a multifamily setting, you should be at 11 to 12 with us on a sort of like-for-like basis, just by using the operating model. We monetize common areas by creating co-work spaces and cafes and eventing spaces and sort of next-gen hospitality thinking, and then we're smart with how we distribute rooms. Organically, we have a strong brand that secures north of 50 to 60% of our bookings, and then we have various other channels. We also use the OTAs as well, depending on the nature of the site. But more and more, we're seeing that 50% become 55%, become 60%, and we're carving out that sort of space where we are less reliant on OTAs than most hotel companies would be. But we still have a full sales team in-house as well that their dedicated focus is on dealing with companies who are bringing people into Cape Town, or experience-driven things, or remote work. The business is already endless, and it's as much as you can find and maintain relationships with.
So the model is that it's a hybrid between a short-term rental and a medium-term sort of rental.
Short to medium-term rentals. In South Africa, we obviously allow short-term rentals. In In San Francisco, for most of our properties, it's north of 1 month.
Wow. Let's talk about San Francisco. So tell us just how did they get on your radar, first of all? How did that come about?
Yeah, so San Francisco as a city and as a canvas is very similar to Cape Town. So, but let's look at the canvas that we're designing on. Amazing restaurants, beautiful outdoors, natural scenery, the bridge, people, culture, coffee shops, architecture. It's all very similar to Cape Town, and so that made us feel at home. And it had challenges. So in 2019, you were buying buildings in San Francisco at 3.5%. Now you can get deals at 6, 7, 8, 9%, depending on. So there's intrinsic value in the market. Interest rates really hurt property owners in San Francisco. And so there was an opportunity to help come in and help solve some of those problems by buying a $1 brick for 60 cents. And the demand for our form of housing, co-living, flexible space is just significant. It's like a very supply-constrained market, and rentals are expensive. Even after the pandemic. So your rooms, between $1,300 and $2,500 a month for a room.
Sure.
Which is quite expensive. So I think for us, and there were no real competitors that we felt had the same sort of product. And Navy is very unique to the extent that it has such a layered approach to how we live across living spaces, working spaces, and experience connected in a city.
So your message to somebody that's probably looking to stay in your accommodation, one, and I think two, to somebody's looking at your space and saying, is this investable?
All I can say is I've got all my money invested in it. And I've spent 20 years building a career. So there's no way in heck that I'd be putting my money into something if I didn't feel like it was going to work. But at the end of the day, this is a logic. You have to start with one thing. And what does the consumer want? And when you start with that, it's easy to build a business case around it, because you're not trying to force a peg into a round hole. You are designing something that the world already needs. So then it's a question of being smart. Are we the right people to acquire properties at the right price? Tick. Does the opportunity make sense in each market? What are the risks? I mean, we risk mitigate to death when we look at buildings. And at the end of the day, multifamily, specifically in the US, is one of the lowest risk investments that there are. There's always a backstop. Everyone needs a home.
Yes.
You can't. Not everyone needs a hotel bed for 2 nights.
No.
So the opportunity is to change what living means and be smarter on that, and move it from $1 to $1.25, $1.30 incrementally, but do that at scale and create a platform that gives people so much more value than just a home or a room to rent. It gives you access to the city and health and wellness and friendships and community and sports and all of those things that are important to us wrapped up as a single product. So if we can achieve that for the same or very similar price to the traditional property manager who's just charging a landlord 6% of collections or 8% of collections, and we can do that for the same price, but you just get so much more value for it as a customer. To me, it is a very investable product. And the full stop is always 12-month rentals. So as a worst case, you've got 12-month rentals at a stabilized stabilized operating cost of 30% or 35%, whatever the number is, and your risk is mitigated. It's not like purpose-built industrial or medical where the tenant might exit and you've got to figure out what to do. It's homes.
Absolutely.
So it's less risky.
You mentioned about understanding the consumer. I mean, without giving away your secret sauce, but I mean, you've obviously managed to find the sort of, let's call it, you almost got like the silver bullet.
I wish we did. Listen, nothing just beats hard work and making sure that there's small amounts of incremental progress every day across the company, because but what the consumer wants again is flexibility, is choice, is access to a city, access to workspaces, access to health and wellness. They want you to respond within 60 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes of them. They don't want to wait for 3 days for a quote. They want instantaneous information quickly. They want you to know when their birthday is. They want you to know how their coffee or their matcha drink is. They want access to yoga and Pilates. They want health and wellness. They want meaningful conversations with other human beings. They want just choice and the freedom to experience life on their terms. And that is what we are giving them to the extent that we are able to at the moment.
Fantastic.
So it's more than a traditional landlord is doing, because traditional landlords, with respect, are not necessarily hospitality people unless you're a hotel company. So I think there is going to be a lot more hotel companies getting into the extended stay space. You're already seeing it with big companies like Four Seasons and companies in the branded residence space. That's a space to watch out for as well, because I think it's going to continue to grow. Get in touch with us. Come and have a coffee. Come and see our workspaces. Come and stay with us at our hotels. Look out for what's going to happen in Josie and Rosebank and new developments across Cape Town, across San Francisco and new cities soon. We're always one phone call away or one email away. We are shorts and slops sort of culturally sort of people, and we like smiles and just down to earth human behavior. So come and see us.
Absolutely. Awesome.